Traversing the drier wastes of the northwestern Commonwealth, we can come across an industrial site. Giant pillars and pylons of a factory stretching up into the air, casting a shadow over the town below. The old streets are seemingly still, but every corner and alleyway hides unseen dangers. Welcome to Oddities, a show where we take a look at locations in games to find details, moments, and minutiae we just think are interesting. Celebrating the mundane that someone still had to put thought into, and supposing tiny stories that could coincide. So grab yourself a tea or a coffee and sit back as we explore together. Today we're here in Lexington, far removed from the farmlands around Sanctuary. We now come to a town overrun with raiders. The same gang of vicious bandits we encountered in Concord. They've claimed the factory as their base of operations and use the rooftops to patrol the town. Below, the streets are stalked by ghouls. A nice extra defense against anyone trying to sneak their way through. Though, the bandits will need to be careful themselves. Entering from the eastern road, we can see several cars that tried to make an exit as the siren sounded. It looks like these ones might have been pushed out of the way, off the road to allow for others to flee. Their paint jobs are chipped and cracked after years in the irradiated wind, sun beating down and peeling it from the body. They were once sleek, modern, desired. Now nothing more than trail markers. It looks like this person was trying to change their tire, it blowing out at exactly the wrong time. It seems Lexington was a bit of an economic centre in the Fallout universe, no doubt upheld by the factory. I imagine most people living here worked there. Those that didn't reside here could leave their cars in the local parking garage. It's fairly empty. With the bombs dropping on a Saturday, most people were probably elsewhere, at home or going for a drive. Good thing too, because this place looks like a nightmare to actually use. There's only one place to enter and exit that can barely fit a single car. There's no lines to indicate parking spaces, but I suppose they could have faded away over the centuries. A post-war survivor made a barricade here, in front of the entryway to basement parking. But if there's a queue to get below, and a queue to get above, then no one can actually get out. All you could really do is find a parking spot and wait until everyone else does too. But if there aren't any available, who knows? We can enter the basement parking lot. Trash and detritus splayed all about. With this lantern still burning, I suppose one of the bandits might have delved down here, looking for supplies or simply exploring. Or it could have belonged to this Minuteman, who might have thought they'd found a place to hunker down. I'm sure they regretted their choice quite quickly, when they spied the horde of feral ghouls that call this place home. With the fusion engines of the cars becoming run down over the years, I'm sure this place is seeped in radiation, promoting the growth of these glowing mushrooms and attracting the ghouls here, able to hide down in the damp dark, hunting on the surface before returning here to fester. A Protectron was stationed down here, probably to keep the place secure from vandals, or perhaps it had the ability to run plates and issue tickets should someone remain parked here too long. I suppose if your car got stuck, you could just leave it and have a bite to eat at this little outdoor seating area with a porta diner and various vending machines. Above, the looming sign of a Super Duper Mart, the local grocery of Lexington. The exterior has seen better days, but we can catch glimpses of the endless advertising that ran down this alley, now covered by dust and dirt that has blown onto the streets. Much like the real world, most people have elected to leave their trolleys strewn about the place rather than returning them. You can imagine townsfolk pouring in and out of the supermarket, picking up some fuel for their Mr. Handy, having a seat over here to gossip with friends, or grabbing the daily newspaper to read while they waited for the traffic to abate so they could go get their car. Nothing bustles inside anymore. The place is hollow, with motes of dust floating through the quiet aisles. The only sounds being that of the soft wind outside and the mechanical whirrings of this dormant Protectron. You can't blame people for leaving their trolleys outside. It looks like you can fit about a total of 6 in the actual return bay. The place has been mostly looted, the aisles featuring very little produce anymore, and most of the signs have deteriorated, so we can't get an indication as to what was in each one. Not that most of the aisles can be entered anyway. The roof has completely caved in, decimating those in the center. I wonder if the bombs caused this, or general wear and tear as water pooled on the roof. If the parking lot is any indication, I'm sure this place didn't have proper drainage. What it did have, though, was an in-house diner. Super Duper Mart entering competition with the Slocum's Joe around the corner. Here you could have a coffee or milkshake and chill out to the jukebox. It's quite a cozy little place now, but I'm sure it was quite noisy back in the day, with the crowded supermarket buzzing with conversation and movement. It seems Super Duper Mart wanted it to be an event to come to their store, something exciting to do, rather than another errand. It's a lot easier to spend money when you become swept up in the spectacular. Not only did they want it to be a place to come, they seemingly wanted it to be the only place to come, offering medication at their own pharmacy here, or quick meals and sandwiches over at their deli. I'm sure a lot of factory workers would swing by here to pick up their lunch before heading into work for the day. Behind the deli, we can enter the employee-only area to find their break room, which is actually quite nice, with a full kitchen setup, homely wallpaper, and plenty of chairs and tables. This must have been a flagship location, for there are also several terminals in this room here, where it looks like some corporate employees might have been stationed. They had their own coffee machine to use, while they spent their hours perhaps balancing books, organizing inventory, or proposing new ways to expand. Down below, we can find the loading dock, where trucks would bring the supermarket's supply. At least they weren't forced to deal with the parking situation on the other side of the block. A lot of factory workers probably elected to dine at the competition, Slocum's Joe, where they could get their morning coffee or scoot on over during a lunch break. Whatever bright blue paint once made this place glow has been overtaken by rust. It was a fairly small place and hasn't fared well at all in the post-war. Someone has used it as a spot to stash some caps. Probably a railroad agent, whom either perished or hasn't managed to go back for them yet. I'm sure with the synths crawling around the place, it's good to remain on the down low. I wonder if this little outside common area was connected to Slocum's, or if it was just conveniently nearby. It's a nice back alley, with some seating and a basketball hoop, but it is concerningly close to the dumpster. I don't suppose that smell would have kept your appetite up. Next door to Slocum's is the local laundromat, which is definitely one of the most unsettling locations we've come across in the series so far. Something about the soft warm light of a lit lantern, implying that someone might have just been here, with the skeletons lying in the shadows. The windows are boarded up, keeping the denizens of the wasteland from entering. The office is a little small too. Whomever worked in it wouldn't have been able to pull their chair out very far. Ergonomics mustn't have been front of mind. But why care about the comfort of employees when you could fit more washing machines in? Lexington had a bank. Cracked marble, the only indication of austere decoration. It has that official feeling. People only ever here to do something specific. I suppose it was one of the first places people would have sought to raid as the apocalypse began, not realizing the dollar would soon be worthless. I guess the memo didn't get around to these two, who were attempting something of a heist. This hole in the vault is very precise. They might have used explosives to get through. Their scheme was cut short, however, either by radiation or the local law, hoping to uphold what was left of order in the panic. It's easy to get turned around in Lexington. The carcasses of buildings melding together in a tangle of scaffold, rubble, and rebar. Whatever they once were has vanished, becoming nothing more than shelter, cover, or nests. You get a sense that the place is melting, slipping down onto the roads as the wind shakes the old foundations. It's clear what this place was, though. An old recreational area, where people could play basketball in this court, or use the swing set. I'm sure Corvega would have pushed for their workers to bring their families along with them, ensuring that they had things to do while their parents toiled away. Though it does feel a bit good enough. This area plonked down without much thought, behind a bunch of buildings, surrounded by roads and nowhere near the local park. Someone decided to make use of this place post-war, using this poor settler in the strangest game of basketball I've ever seen. Nearby, the raiders have a bit of an outpost, built into the rubble of old homes. I suppose they want human eyes on the northern road, not relying on the feral ghouls to be diligent at all hours. You'd have to draw the short straw to be stationed here though, for if the turrets fail, it's just you and the ghouls. There's no bedding, so they must rotate pretty often. but the sentries can make use of a cooking station, should they manage to snipe a ragstag passing by. Of course, we have Mystic Pines, the local old folks' home, a place of peace and tranquility, with lovely views of power lines and the highway. Once it might have been quite nice, with windows peering down to the river. Now it sits in permanent shadow. The inhabitants' legacy lives on in their garden here, which has broken free from the pots and claimed the place for its own. Weirdly, I could only count 5 rooms available at the place, but looking around I could find about 15 bodies lying about. Even discounting staff, I think Mystic Pines might have been over capacity. Unless another home was visiting, or some poor folks had to sleep on their couches in the hallway, I'm not sure how the place was managing it. It's hard to say what this building was, for a big chunk of the highway has flattened it. With all these excavators, it could have been a depot for a construction company, or a dealership for them. Hopefully, no one was inside when the road gave way. Speaking of, as we observed at Mystic Pines, the highway has almost completely swallowed the skyline of Lexington, the town now buried under the monolithic road. It was a shortcut, a bypass, skipping the minutiae to get to the big city, ignoring the very town that built the car you're driving. And I don't think the powers that be cared, for the factory can still be seen, sitting atop the hill in all its grandeur. The only reason to stop as a traveller would be to visit the Red Rocket, should you need a tune-up. Good thing Slocum's sits right nearby, but with only 2 pumps, I don't think they expected much traffic. From the highway, we can spy the rooftops the raiders have managed to claim. Walkways and hovels hide the watchmen, able to rain down fire should they spot an intruder. They'd want to watch their movements, however. Just above teeters a trailer that has fallen from the highway, coming to rest just here at the tip of their watchtower. It's quite disconcerting, standing right under it. It feels like a stray gust of wind could send it careening downwards, taking any unfortunate raiders and ghouls down with it. The raiders' friends reside in the fortress. The factory, now co-opted into a battlement of thievery. Though, it might have always been, depending on which mechanic you spoke to. Raider thievery doesn't leave much room for subjectivity, at least. The apocalypse simplifying some aspects of human morality. It's clear what the political stance of the workforce and management was, with anti-communist posters adorning the walls, falling in step with their compatriots. And though the factory is grand, its entrance is rather mundane, meant for no one but the workers. The layman probably much more interested in the pillars above. It looks like they were having some issues with piping though, for one has burst right in the centre here. I don't think anyone got around to it before the bombs fell. Also, the builder installed this valve a little wonky. Inside, we can get a sense of Corvega's visual merchandising, with almost half of the reception area taken up by their pride and joy. A mission statement. They're here to make cars. And yet, within their own territory, Corvega have allowed another corporation to worm their way in. Though I suppose Nuka-Cola might have a few dealings with them. You need to put something in the cup holders, after all. Sheets of paper are strewn about the place, corporate secrets decorating a floor. Trodden and crumpled, their importance vanishing the instant food and water became a currency. Already, I'm liking the amount of fire extinguishers we're seeing around the halls. Being a factory, fire safety would be of utmost importance. It looks like the raiders took all of the furniture and stacked it in this hallway here, transforming the lobby into a death trap, which would funnel potential assailants towards their guns. Anyone barreling through the front doors would get quite a fright. I usually find myself getting lost in here during a normal playthrough. The raiders having wormed their way into every corner of the factory. With the constant noise, it's easy to get turned around. All the piping and conveyor belts merging into one big maze. It seems like the factory still breathes. Deep down in its bowels, steam still flows from various vents, and deep churns reverberate through the chambers. It feels like we're trapped in something that could wake up at any second. The raiders don't seem to mind the atmosphere. Down on the lower levels, they're quite interested in digging through all the hidden supplies, electing to ignore the copious warning signs. Stepping out onto the production floor, we can see endless boxes of car parts awaiting transportation and fixation. Engines and chassis, coolant caps, gears, rods, spigots, an endless array of bits and bobs that somehow fuse together to create a car. The employees had a break area, which is similar in size to the Super Duper Marts. I wonder if the raiders brought this beer in, or if it was customary to crack open a cold one after a tough day on the factory floor, catching the tail end of a baseball game on the TV. It looks like the cars ran on a bit of an assembly line up here, each set of arms constructing a section as it ran along the track. But once it reached this corner, I'm not sure how the car would have actually fit around this metal beam. This one somehow managed to break the laws of physics and move on to the next step. Furthermore, how do they get the cars out of the factory? Presumably through these big red doors. But between them and the assembly line, there are even more metal beams blocking the path. The factory was probably designed by the same guy who did the car park. Who keeps contracting them? Above the assembly line is Jared, the leader of this band of raiders. On his terminal, we can find out exactly why this gang targeted Preston and the Quincy survivors. It seems Jared was aware of Mama Murphy's chem-induced visions and sought to claim the power as well through experimentation with chems. There are plenty of stories like this to be found in the wasteland. Hundreds of oddities to be undertaken. Unfortunately for Jared, his obsession led him into the path of who is basically the Commonwealth's John Wick, the sole survivor, single-handedly putting an end to his gang. Outside, it looks like someone was in the process of walling up the red doors. Probably the raiders, who might have seen it as a weakness in the defences. Or maybe a pre-war protester who didn't want to see any more Corvegas on the streets. Little did they know, the company wouldn't have been able to get the cars out anyway. Interestingly, as we ascend the factory, we can see that almost all of the stacks are still emitting exhaust, despite the building's dormant state. Maybe in some inaccessible place, new cars are still being made. Or, as is the case with many of Fallout's corporations, perhaps this factory isn't all it seems. Wrapping up, we can find a small bus terminal, ironically in full view of the car factory. It looks like this is where you went to be ferried up to the city. The eastern road, allowing the buses to link up with the highway. There's a little park on the edge of town, but it's been completely flooded. A fine mist rolls over the water, giving it a bit of a Silent Hill feeling. I suppose the water, pouring from the highway above, pools down here, getting caught instead of flowing down to the river. And just above the town, we can find a lone tree standing strong against the wind, a gravestone at its base. It's a nice place to sit and look around, watching the lights of the factory flicker, smoke rise from the disposal yard, and clouds drift slowly through the distant city. And that's Lexington. A bit of a jump scare, if you aren't expecting this many enemies after clearing Concord. The raider with the fat man has definitely seen the death of me quite a few times. Though, it is fun to lead the ghouls up towards the raiders, letting the two groups fight it out as you sit back and relax. Thanks for watching. As always, if there's any games, details, or moments you'd like us to take a look at, let us know in the comments. Shout out to our members: Thane Krios 8, Anna A2640, Najkula, Renee, Patrick Connaughton 4171, Speed of the Earth, Nathan Armstrong 6085, Call Me Jibs, and Tsunomics. Stay tuned for more oddities, odysseys, open roads, observations, opinions, and come join us live over at twitch.tv/SamandMillie. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.